We are told that history were written by the victors, but most of the important chapters were written by the people the world tried to erase. And that is the story of Ignaz Semmelweis. Please tell us in detail the story of Ignaz Semmelweis and the Invincible Killer.
In the mid 19th century, the world of medicine was often unaware of what we now understand about germs and infection. At the Vienna General Hospital, a young Hungarian obstetrician named Ignaz Semmelweis found himself deeply troubled by a grim reality. The hospital was divided into two maternity divisions. The first was where medical students and doctors were trained, and the second was where midwives were taught. To Semmelweis's horror, women in the first division were dying at a rate significantly higher than those in the second, sometimes up to 5 times more. Mothers were terrified of being assigned to the first ward, with some even choosing to give birth in the streets to avoid it. Semmelweis began a meticulous investigation, examining every possible difference between the two clinics, from room ventilation to religious practices, but nothing explained the disparity. The breakthrough came when a colleague died from an infection after a scalpel accidentally punctured him during an autopsy. Semmelweis realized that the medical students often came directly from the autopsy room, where they were handling cadavers, to examine pregnant women without washing their hands. He concluded that cadaverous particles were being transferred, infecting the mothers. Semmelweis instituted a strict policy. Everyone was required to wash their hands in a chlorine solution before examining patients. The impact was dramatic. The mortality rate plummeted, proving his theory correct. Yet, tragically, many in the medical community rejected his ideas, unwilling to accept that they were inadvertently causing the deaths of their patients. How do you think this historical resistance to a simple life-saving measure changed the way medical professionals approach hygiene today?
Why did the medical community continue to ignore his findings? And how did Semmelweis' behavior change?
The resistance to Semmelweis's findings was widespread, particularly among the elite medical establishments in Vienna and other major European centers. Because his ideas challenged long-held beliefs and implicated his colleagues in the deaths of patients, they were slow to accept the practice of hand-washing. As for Semmelweis himself, the constant rejection and isolation took a heavy toll on his mental health. He became increasingly bitter, angry, and erratic, and was known to publicly humiliate his opponents and write furious open letters. Eventually, his behavior led to his commitment to an asylum, where he tragically died. Did you want to know more about who eventually championed the germ theory that validated his work?
Can you detail the specific cause of his death and explain the tragic irony of how he actually died?
The specific cause of his death was generalized sepsis, which is a severe bloodstream infection. The tragic irony lies in the fact that he died from the very same type of infection he had spent his career trying to prevent. Reports suggest he sustained a hand injury while working with a cadaver in the asylum, which then became infected, leading to his rapid decline.
And how was he betrayed by his friends?
The betrayal of Semmelweis was deeply personal and tragic. In 1865, his colleagues and even some relatives, believing he was losing his mind due to his erratic behavior, orchestrated a journey to Vienna. He was led to believe he was visiting a colleague's institution, only to realize too late that it was a newly built asylum for the mentally ill. When he attempted to leave, he was restrained and brutally treated by the guards, which led to his fatal infection. It was a devastating end for a man whose only crime was trying to save lives.
We have found out that from past history,
Could
those who actually were right was the world wasn't ready for them. And that was the case of Ignaz Semmelweis in the 1940s, who discovered that hand washing could save thousands of lives. But rather, he wasn't praised. He was mocked, he was betrayed, he was fired, and eventually died in a mental asylum. For him to be realized a hero after 20 years. What a shame. This is Silent Record. If you believe this stories needs to be heard, consider subscribing. Let's keep the record alive. Thank you.